I'm J. Lenora Bressler, and welcome to the December 12th, 2018 edition of the Bible Delight in the Details as we continue with the Advent story. In the book of Luke, we are told about two very similar and yet very dissimilar situations. Both of them involved a message. In fact, it was the same type of message, that of an unexpected pregnancy. Both were by an angel, the same angel actually, Gabriel, and both of them were going to being given to godly people. And yet the reactions are very different. You know, sometimes details of the Bible are right there in front of us, but for whatever reason, we've never really seen them. And this is one of those examples for me personally, because up until a couple days ago, it had never dawned on me that in the book of Luke, we have these two very similar circumstances evoking very different responses. And I think we're supposed to see them together. In fact, the very fact that it's the same angel, Gabriel, and that we're told specifically that it was Gabriel, I think is supposed to make this even more obvious. Of course, I'm talking about Zechariah and Mary. You remember that Zechariah was an old man. He was a very devout follower of Yahweh. He was a priest. His family had been priests for generations after generations. His ancestors went, of course, all the way back to King David and beyond that. And he was a devout priest, and he was serving his time in the temple when inside the holy place, while he was doing his duty, an angel, Gabriel, appeared to the right of the menorah, of the light stand. And to the right of the altar of incense. Now, the reason this is important is that the altar of incense was thought to represent the prayers going up to God. And it is said in the Bible that the prayers of the saints have a pleasing aroma to the Lord. So it's interesting because, as you may remember, Zechariah and his wife Elizabeth had wanted a child, and they were very old, and they had prayed and prayed, and it seemingly the prayer was going unanswered. And so the fact that the angel shows up to the right by the altar of incense is a great demonstration, metaphorically, that God has heard and is now responding to the prayer of Zechariah. But when Gabriel told him that his wife Elizabeth was going to have a baby, and that he was going to be in the spirit of Elijah and pronounce the coming of the Messiah, Zechariah was doubtful and actually asked for a sign or proof. And Gabriel, you can tell in the book of Luke, is a little miffed with him, and actually then says, because you have not believed, you're going to be silent. Now, this is very interesting. You know, it's fascinating to me how the way God deals with us is always great poetic justice. Think about it. Here was an old, godly priest. If anybody should have believed, it should have been him. He's even doing his holy duty in the middle of the temple, and an angel shows up, and he doubts. He is supposed to believe the words of God, and he didn't when the words of God were spoken to him by Gabriel. And what did God very poetically, justifiably do? He removed words from him. Think about that. A priest was supposed to help be an intercessor between God and man, making God understandable to man. And how did he do that? He was supposed to do that through communicating, right? And God removed that. He removed Zechariah's ability to communicate and to use the words because he didn't believe the word of the Lord when it came to him. How appropriate is that? Which brings me to something else we should remember. In excuse me, in the beginning of Revelation, in the letters to the 7 churches, Jesus is talking to people, Christians, and he says, if you don't shape up, if you don't act worthy as witnesses for me, I will remove your lampstands. And a lot of people don't understand what that means. That doesn't mean you lose your salvation. It means that you lose the opportunities that God would otherwise have given you to be ambassadors for him in the world. And that is particularly important for those of us in ministry, preachers and teachers and music directors and worship leaders, that we remember that we can have our lampstands removed, not our salvation, but our opportunity to be witnesses for God if we are not good witnesses and good ambassadors. Zechariah was not being that at the moment. And what was temporarily his opportunity to minister was gone. Think of what he could have done. He could have gone out there immediately, talked to him about, I just saw an angel. Here's what the angel said. But instead, he was denied that because of his unbelief. Now, interestingly, just a few weeks later, here's this almost the same thing happens to a teenage girl, not a priest. She's just in her hometown doing her normal youthful things, and the same angel shows up, tells her that she's going to have an unexpected pregnancy. It would be the Messiah. And what does she do? She doesn't ask for any sign. She doesn't go nuts and start saying, well, what about this? What about that? No, she says, let it be. I am the Lord's handmaiden. I am the Lord's servant. What a different reaction. And wouldn't you have thought that that would have been the mature reaction of the old priest? But it wasn't. It was of the young girl, which shows you that it is not always about experience or education or academic knowledge. It is about the character of the person and their walk with the Lord. Do not doubt, my friends. Let us be like Mary and not like Zechariah, who had far more education than Mary, but apparently a little less faith. I'm J. Lenora Bressler. Visit me on the next edition of The Bible, Delight in the Details, as we welcome the season of Advent. Have a great day.